There are eras in American history that stay with us, not because of their comfort, but because of the strength people found within them. The Great Depression, lasting from 1929 through much of the 1930s, remains one of those defining chapters. It was a time when families changed the way they lived, the way they worked, and even the way they ate. Yet within all the hardship, people found ways to stretch ingredients, make do with little, and create meals that were simple, humble, and sometimes unusual to modern eyes. Today, we're taking a gentle walk through those foods, each one a quiet reminder of a time when creativity carried families through long days, and every meal, no matter how small, was appreciated. These dishes may feel unfamiliar now, but for those who lived through the Depression, they represented survival, resourcefulness, and heart. Let's begin with one of the most well-remembered staples of the era. 1. Hoover Stew. Hoover Stew was known in many parts of the country as the food served in makeshift kitchens and relief centers. It was named, somewhat quietly, after President Herbert Hoover, though the name didn't always carry judgment, often just resignation. The dish was simple: boiled macaroni, sliced hot dogs, stewed tomatoes, and canned corn. The ingredients were chosen because they were cheap, reliable, and easy to cook in large pots meant to feed entire families or neighborhoods. There was nothing fancy about it. No seasonings beyond salt, if that. No garnish, just warm food in a bowl, offered to those who needed it. Even now, people who grew up in the 1930s recall Hoover Stew with a sense of gratitude. It wasn't about flavor, it was about the comfort of something warm on a difficult day. 2. Water pie. Water pie is one of the Depression's most quietly ingenious desserts. Made with little more than water, sugar, butter, and a bit of flour, it created a soft, custard-like filling that set as it baked. Cooks relied on it when milk, eggs, and other common baking ingredients were too expensive or unavailable. Despite its simplicity, water pie offered something rare during those years: a sense of normalcy. A dessert on the table, even a humble one, could make a home feel warm again. Many who grew up during the Depression remember this pie not as a symbol of lack, but as proof that their mothers or grandmothers could create comfort from almost nothing. 3. Ketchup soup. Ketchup soup was often associated with diners willing to stretch a nickel. But for families at home, it was simply a way to create something filling when nothing else was left in the pantry. All it required was hot water and a few spoonfuls of ketchup. Sometimes a pat of butter was added, when available. The result wasn't hearty, but it offered warmth, and for many, that was enough. This soup became a quiet reflection of the times, gentle, thin, and modest, but meaningful in its own way. A reminder that even the simplest foods can carry memories across generations. 4. Vinegar pie. Another dessert born from necessity, vinegar pie combined water, sugar, flour, and vinegar to create a filling with a tangy sharpness often compared to lemon. Lemons were too expensive for most families, especially far from coastal markets, so vinegar became their substitute. The pie was baked in a standard crust and often served on Sundays or holidays. Its flavor was surprisingly bright, helping lift spirits during long seasons of uncertainty. Vinegar pie shows the creativity that defined the Depression, finding ways to recreate beloved flavors when the real ingredients were out of reach. 5. Banana coffee. When real coffee was too costly, families turned to banana peels. They dried them until dark, roasted them, and then brewed them like grounds. Banana coffee wasn't meant to imitate the taste of real coffee. It simply gave people a warm drink to start their morning. For many, this simple cup helped them feel like the day still carried routines worth keeping. The process took time, but time was one thing many people suddenly had in abundance. Banana coffee remains one of the Depression's most resourceful substitutions. 6. Dandelion salad yards, fields, and roadsides became part of the pantry during the Depression. Fresh produce was expensive, and foraging became a quiet tradition that helped many families get by. Dandelion greens, often gathered in the early spring before they became bitter, were washed and tossed with a bit of vinegar or oil when available. Some added salt pork if they had it. Others ate the greens as they were. Dandelion salad was more than a meal. It was an early spring ritual, bringing a sense of renewal when winters were long and hard. Families still speak of gathering greens together as one of their gentler memories from that era. 7. Mock apple pie. Mock apple pie was one of the Great Depression's most famous illusions. Instead of apples, which were costly, seasonal, and often inaccessible, cooks used crackers. Ritz crackers became particularly popular, though any plain cracker would do. When boiled with sugar, water, cream of tartar, and cinnamon, the crackers softened into tender layers that resembled the texture of apples. Baked in a pie crust, it fooled many people who didn't know the secret. This pie wasn't made as a joke. It was made to bring joy at a time when joy was hard-earned. Families served it with pride, grateful to offer something special to their children or guests. 8. Cornbread and milk. Few Depression meals carried the same sense of warmth as cornbread and milk. Also known as crumbled cornbread in a bowl, it was often eaten for supper, especially in rural areas. Cold milk softened the stale cornbread, stretching it just enough to fill a stomach. Some added a spoonful of sugar. Others used buttermilk, depending on what the farm or local dairy provided. Simple, quiet, and nourishing, this dish became a bedtime staple for many families facing long days with limited resources. 9. Onion sandwiches. Onion sandwiches were exactly what they sound like. Slices of raw onion placed between two pieces of bread, sometimes with a little salt, sometimes with a thin spread of fat if the household had some left. The sandwich was strong in flavor but inexpensive and filling. It became a worker's lunch in many parts of the country, especially among those who needed something quick before heading back to long hours in fields or factories. For children, the taste could be sharp, but the memory of sitting beside a parent during a lunch break often stays with them far longer than the flavor itself. 10. Lard sandwiches. During the Depression, lard served as one of the most affordable fats available. A lard sandwich consisted of bread spread with lard, sometimes sprinkled with salt or sugar depending on what was on hand. Though unusual to modern palates, fat provided calories and energy that many families deeply needed. These sandwiches were common, especially among children, and helped sustain people through cold winters and long days of labor. Families didn't view lard sandwiches as strange. They were simply food, steady, reliable, and important. 11. Fried bread. Sometimes called Depression fry bread. This meal involved frying pieces of dough, or simply slices of stale bread, in fat or grease. Fried bread was warm, crispy, and comforting. When topped with a bit of syrup, sugar, or jam, rare treats, it became a simple breakfast or dessert. For many, the crackling sound of bread hitting a hot pan is a memory tied closely to home. 12. Potato pancakes. Potatoes were inexpensive, versatile, and widely grown. Potato pancakes required only grated potatoes, an egg if available, a bit of flour, and salt. Fried in a skillet, they created a satisfying meal that could be served at breakfast or dinner. Some families ate them plain. Others topped them with cooked onions or leftover vegetables. Potato pancakes were a small reminder that even in lean times, families could enjoy warm, familiar food. 13. Bread pudding. Nothing was wasted during the Great Depression, especially bread. Bread pudding became a household staple, made with stale loaves softened in milk and sweetened with whatever was at hand, molasses, sugar, or even syrup. Baked until golden, it provided a comforting end to a meal, and for many children, it was their favorite part of the day. It brought both warmth and nostalgia, long after the Depression ended. 14. Cornmeal. Mush. Cornmeal. Mush was a simple porridge made from water and cornmeal, cooked slowly until thick. Some families poured it into pans to cool, then sliced and fried it the next day. The dish was filling and reliable, often served with a bit of milk or a drizzle of syrup. It was a breakfast that held people over as they went about their work, steady and grounding. 15. Prune pudding. Prunes were inexpensive and kept well, making them a common pantry item. Prune pudding combined stewed prunes with a bit of sugar and flour, creating a dense, sweet dessert. Many people remember this dish as one of the few treats they enjoyed during difficult years. Its deep, rich flavor stood in contrast to the otherwise plain meals often served. Why these foods still matter today? The meals of the Great Depression were more than recipes. They were reflections of resilience, resourcefulness, and the quiet determination that carried families through uncertain times. Each dish, no matter how unusual it may seem now, had purpose. A warm bowl of Hoover Stew brought comfort to children. A slice of water pie let families feel normal again. Dandelion salad brought the colors of spring to tables after long winters. These foods remind us that even in the hardest years, people found ways to care for one another. The meals were humble, but the spirit they represented was strong. Closing words. As we look back on the strangest foods people ate during the Great Depression, we're not just remembering the dishes themselves. We're remembering the families who gathered around small tables, sharing what they had. We're remembering the hands that made these meals, often late at night or early in the morning, stretching ingredients as far as they would go. And we're remembering the quiet strength of a generation that endured, adapted, and rebuilt. Thank you for spending this time exploring these foods and the history behind them. If you enjoyed this gentle journey through the past, feel free to like or follow for more stories told in this warm, nostalgic style.